Now, few items of clothing have inspired as much debate and concern as the burqa. Worn by some Muslim women, the full-length veil covers the entire face and body, leaving just a mesh screen to see through. Some countries have banned wearing it in public, and it's become part of a wider argument about religious freedom and assimilation. Now, an Australian photographer is showing the burqa in a very different light. Well, that photographer's name is Fabian Muir, and he joins me now from Sydney. Fabian, thanks very much for joining us here on the program. We've got your photographs here on our screens, and you really can see how bright this burqa is against the Australian backdrop.
Well, it certainly is. I guess the pictures you're referring to are from the initial series, which was Blue Burqa in a sunburnt country, which was predominantly taken in Australian landscapes in far western New South Wales and also across Western Australia. And indeed, I think the colour combinations are very striking.
Yeah, we're looking at one right now with the woman in the blue burqa sort of kneeled on this red earth. Just tell us what the message behind these photographs was.
Excuse me, I think something dropped out.
No,
for a moment.
I can hear you. Go ahead. You can.
Okay, sorry, I heard another voice coming through. Well, look, the message for Blue Burqa in a sunburnt country at the time was it was spawned really by Tony Abbott's government at the time, when there was a discussion of banning the burqa from the public gallery in Parliament, and that then exploded into a much broader discussion of a burqa ban in Australia as a whole. And it seemed to me that the use of the burqa in these landscapes, the burqa and the landscapes complemented each other both tonally and aesthetically in a very unexpected way. And for me, that suggested and hinted at a potential symbiosis between refugees, specifically from Muslim countries, but if you take it in a broader sense, really from any country where people are regarded as being different, and Australia, which is can be quite a harsh place. And so the symbiosis, as I say, between the two, that is what spawned the initial series, and the follow-up series, which is Urban Burqa, I guess, unfortunately, seeks to depict a more exaggerated culture of confrontation that has really developed in the intervening 2 years, and I guess what is quite a toxic atmosphere at the current time. And so taking the burqa into urban environments enables, for me, it's a way to convey the message of the confrontation and challenges now confronting these people.
Indeed, because it was initially an appeal for change, more than 2 years ago, and 2 years on, so much has changed in the political landscape.
Well, that's correct. And, I mean, sadly, it hasn't changed for the better, at least in my opinion. And so, at the current time, I've never in my lifetime seen anything quite like this, a period where, government campaigns are built upon platforms of hatred, and there seem to be large portions of the electorate that respond to this. And at the same time, I just find it very distressing that there seems to be a lack of compassion and a lack of an ability on the part of many people to put themselves actually in the shoes of these people who are coming as refugees, be it to Australia or the United States or the United Kingdom or, Germany, where they seem to have been far, more gently received, happily. And, I sometimes wonder, to these people who take such a harsh view of these refugees, ask themselves, what kind of reception they would be expecting if they had to flee to another country and seek refuge themselves.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the woman that you've used in each of these images? Is it the same woman? And can you tell us something about her?
Yes, it's the same woman throughout both series. And she has actually requested that she not be specifically identified, but that's also with a view to, I guess, retaining the mystique of the images, because I guess if I were to say it's, Jane Jones from Blacktown, suddenly it's not so interesting. But she's a very highly intelligent, very free-thinking and liberated woman. So she's not the kind of person who would have donned the burqa if she thought for one moment that the series was about, extolling the virtues of forcing women to wear a burqa in any culture.
Fascinating. You've brought the burqa into a very Australian landscape, but you yourself have been to some difficult places yourself. You did a series called Intimate Perspectives on North Korea, and you got a really interesting and rare insight into that most secretive state.
Yes, look, that was fortunate. I think it's, of course, a very difficult country. You would be aware, I guess, from your own correspondents who travel there, you know, often to cover the various celebrations that they have over the course of the year, that there are constraints placed upon any visitor there, and that's specifically the guides who take you around, who are, well, quite often referred to as minders because they have a dual role. I mean, they're certainly trained as guides, but at the same time, they're there to keep an eye on where you're heading. And so, yes, I took on, I guess, a long-term project during which I visited the DPRK 5 times over a period of 2 years to really try to take a more humanist approach to the country, because obviously as fascinating, eye-catching as the military
we're looking at some images of soldiers, you know, really having a good time. And even in our studio, we're seeing, you know, children playing in the park. So really giving a sense of life as normal.
Well, this is right. Well, yes, the purpose of my particular series is really much more humanist, to show a North Korea that I think even North Korea doesn't typically show. But, you know, there's side by side. I mean, of course, there's the propagandistic aspect and the concern about the United States and all of that. However, there's a day-to-day life going on which is not typically depicted, I find, by photographers. There's one US photographer, David Guttenfelder, who works for AP, and he did quite a lot of work in that direction. But otherwise, of course, I can understand the fascination of the military parades, but it's not actually a daily event there. And there are indeed people having picnics and drinking beers and this kind of thing. So there is a surprisingly normal life going on. And in that sense, there was a very famous series that was done by Henri Cartier-Bresson in 1954, where he went to the Soviet Union, you know, which was very shortly after the death of Stalin. And of course he wasn't there taking photographs of gulags or the KGB, but he took a humanist approach and showed day-to-day life of Soviet citizens. And that was then published in Life magazine and came as a great surprise to viewers. And, you know, my attempt has been, I suppose, to do something very similar with my North Korean series.
Really fascinating series there. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And you can
my
see
pleasure.
More of,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I see more of Fabian's photographs on our website.